Good evening and welcome to Native Sessions. Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I'm Peter Kirn. I run a site called CDM. It's createdigitalmusic.com, and I'm really excited to be here because just like all of you, I'm anxious to open my ears and eyes and see what some experts have to say about working in Reaktor. So tonight, we get to explore a world where you can create your own instruments and effects and synthesizers, and this is something that I've believed in for a long, long time, and that's managed to bring me here and managed to connect me with lots and lots of fascinating people who are not limited in their imaginations by the kinds of tools that they use in their music, but want to create their own. So tonight we have a really amazing lineup of people. We have artists. Deadbeat is here, Errorsmith is here, Tim Exile is here to play for us, and all of the developers of Reaktor are here. So the people who actually made this tool are here to talk to us. And all of you are out there watching on the internet, hello. You guys can actually ask us questions through the evening and type them in, and we can see you, actually. I can see all of you out there, and I know what you're asking, and we will pass those questions on to the people assembled in this room. But before all of that, we're going to start with one very special artist, and that's Werner, who many of you know as part of Mouse on Mars. And Jan is going to take us back to the dawn of time and walk us through the history of how instruments are created. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jan, and he's going to take us on a trip through time.
Okay, guys, I have the job to introduce you to instrument building and do a short history of like what humans came up with after they were initiated with the Big Bang. I found this on an Arte documentary about Olivier Messiaen, the composer that I highly admire. And this is his wife, Yvonne Loyot. And I don't know if you can read this. The subline says, as you all know, everything started with the Big Bang. Not 100% sure what he exactly meant with it, because no one of us can remember that. But I guess it meant at the very beginning sound was just there. It was a phenomenon. It was part of nature. It was animal sounds. It was the weather. It was just a force. And then eventually we learned that we could initiate our own sounds. And the early documents of instruments are hard to trace back, but there was a find in a Swabian cave, I think that was 2008 or something, where they found a flute, a prehistoric flute, 40,000 years old. And I want to show you a little clip from a documentary that the film director Werner made about actually cave drawings in a French cave. And then in that movie, he kind of moves on through the caves and he ends up in Swabia at some point, where this cave scientist explains a prehistoric flute, and I find that quite striking.
One of the most important finds we made in this cave was a very tiny flute made out of the radius of a vulture. Astonishing on this flute is that it is pentatonic. And this is the same tonality we are used to hear today. And if you like, I'll try to play some small tunes for you. And when I first reconstructed the instrument, tried to play some tunes, I came across these ones. Sounds a little bit like Star Spangled Banner.
That's pretty striking. I found that really gave me actually shivers to realize that the modal system that we prefer to hear in songs today is still based or basically relates to something that humans have been enjoying for tens of thousands of years. And if you think about an instrument being like something that's there for pleasure, for your spiritual uplifting, for ceremonies, for whatever, I think this is very much like where we still are. But then there is, of course, another side, which is an instrument to produce something that's really extreme as well. And also there, I don't know from when that exactly dates, but also I found a clip of an Aztec pipe, which is, you could say, the other side of what instruments can provide us with. Another short clip.
Now I want to show you this. I want to share with you this very unique instrument we call the dead whistle. The dead whistle the Aztec used for special ceremonies, for Day of the Dead celebration, and also they use when they have a war, when they fight with other tribes. They play over 100 instruments, 100 dead whistles, marching and make a lot of noise to cause a big psychological effects to the enemy. So this is very intimidating instruments, and this is very unique. So this is the dead whistle. Dead whistle.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing if you think about how long you have to work in Reaktor to produce a sound like that. So I'm skipping a couple of thousand years now, and we're basically in the electricity age. So the instrument fell apart. It's not a resonant body you hit or blow or beat or how do you say, you strike it with a string or something. No, things fall apart. So you have transistors and resistors, and it's all like a huge mess. And you have to find a way to assemble all that on a circuit board and come up with an interesting idea. So this is Thomas Alva Edison predicting the present times. But there were other people, like this guy, who you all know, Bob Moog, and he had a really good idea of how you could use a circuit board, how you could use electronic sounds. He connected it with a keyboard, basically, and built a super futuristic piano. It's not really fair because he had very good ideas about modular synths as well. But his big thing was actually that you could play these synthetic sounds in a mode, like in a 12-tone scale, basically. And he came up with all kinds of other ideas of things in little boxes, which I appreciate, but I still think this guy, Don Buchla, had a very interesting approach, which for a very long time wasn't as prominent as Bob Moog's, but I think he's about to happen now, this guy. So Don Buchla was more like an engineer, and his ideas was like everything could be patchable, and that's himself like playing one of his Buchla synths, and you can already see the chaos that there is, but it's this genius ideas in there, and I want to show you a little clip of something that I think is still very, very modern. It's that thing. It basically, it's the controller for an easel synth, and he controls several parameters at the same time with that. So I would say, I would dare to claim this is like a pre-dubstep idea, basically. It's like maybe 60 years before we discovered the cool wobbles of synths. He already had that in mind. Here's another image of a Buchla. And here's another little clip. Let's see if we can enlarge that. Where like one slider of the synth is changing several parameters at the same time. It's, this is maybe not like super striking to you, but you have to see this is probably like this idea dates 50 years back. And I think this is where we basically are right now. So I want to take the lead from those guys, so basically Don Buchla, and connect it with Steim, an institute in Amsterdam. Steim is a weird place. It's not existing as it used to. It shrunk down, it lost a lot of funding, but Steim was basically the brainchild of a few electroacoustic composers from the 60s, and then it was run by a guy called Michel Weisfisch for a very long time. And this guy was heavily influenced by Don Buchla to build his own synthesizer. And his idea was that you could open the circuit of the synth and play it directly with your hand. Of course, you would be in contact with voltage. So basically, his synthesizer couldn't be connected to a normal plug. You wouldn't want to do that with 220 volts. So his synthesizer is battery driven, but it's a great idea, and I think this is kind of like, to me, a very cool take on the idea of modular, because he basically takes the human body as the modulation system. So depending on your body heat, the tension of your skin, and the humidity of your skin, and the humidity of the room, the synthesizer would always sound different. So I want to quickly introduce you to the Crackle synthesizer, which I actually happened to be able to play because I was working for Steim for a couple of years as an artistic director, and so I played with Michel Weisfisch a few shows, and we were friends, and he gave me the Crackle synth, so I made a few videos. So this one actually features me and a very special guest that you have to identify. It's a little game in there. Okay, here's the Crackle synth. The Crackle synth has keys, so you can tune each key the way you want. The weird resonant sound comes because the speaker, of course, has to be part of the synth. You can't really connect a line output to the synth, because if there was a short circuit, you would get the full power directly into your hand. So if you played with the tongue, that means immediate death. So yeah, it's actually a true follower to the death whistle, I think. So the speaker is in this little shield that you put on the synthesizer, and this is how you amplify it. So you can actually always had to mic it up in a very analog way. Special guest. Very virtuosic. Here's one. You can see you can also play melodies. Okay, so this is a smaller version of the Crackle synth. It's the Crackle box. I happen to have one here. Quickly play it for you if you like. Just look at the picture and listen to the sound. It's the same principle, so it's the open circuit, and you connect it as you want with your body, with your fingers, and it always sounds different. We could actually do a really nice experiment. Thank you. It's nothing. We could do a nice experiment if you had more time. We do it another time, maybe at another talk, Because if I would touch this thing and then we would all hold hands and the last one in the queue would again touch this thing, it would still sound and it would have the modulation of everyone in the room basically playing that, closing that circuit, which is pretty amazing. So this is Michel playing his Crackle synth, fully in it. He had a few other inventions. This is called the hands, and he plays a sampling software called Lisa with that, so he could sample stuff in real time. The hands were a bit an idea of like imitating an accordion, because Michel was an accordion player as well, and so he took that metaphor and built his own instrument. So the idea of Steim, his institute, was that every musician should have their own instrument, and Steim would help them build whatever they needed. So there's all kinds of weird inventions that came from that place, and still do come from that place. This is actually a PD thing that led to Fellow. Fellow is a software that's basically triggered with a cello bow. Andy Otto is playing that, and this PD patch has been programmed by Florian Grote, who's also a Native Instruments member, employee maybe, I don't know. It's called the web, the shoe, the leftover. Here's a Steim studio part, another Michel Weisfisch imitator, I'd say. The hands again, and a few other little things. This is pretty cool. Dutch expressionistic, modular band, supergroup. So, yeah, the idea of Steim was very like doing installations as well, involving everyone to explore the world of sound. But all this is very directly related to the ideas that Buchla already had. Here's a bit of Crackle synth. So, the designs are beautiful. And I visited the MIT a few months ago, and people there still relate to these ideas, like having metal boards as controllers and connecting them to synthesizers or even digital patches. So this was basically my presentation that leads us to the present times, and the present times should be explained by people who do it much better than me and who know much more about it. Maybe I could play a little tune from Michel to end this with. It's called Crackle Revisited.
So thank you, Jan, for kind of giving us an insight into the origin of musical instruments, not to mention the origin of this beard that I have, in case you hadn't noticed. So we're going to. One of the reasons I was kind of excited to be here today is because this instrument building culture is really truly is a part of the DNA of Native Instruments. And it's also something that goes back to its founder. It's part of the way that this company is here and the way that they prototype their own instruments and products that they bring to the rest of us. So to explain a bit of that, we have a very special video with Stefan Schmidt, the originator of the software that we're looking at tonight.
Ich war eigentlich Entwickler von analoger Elektronik. Das war so mein Schwerpunkt. Mit so einem Hintergrund von Elektrotechnik und Signalverarbeitung war es für mich auch nicht so schwierig, also zum Beispiel so ein kompliziertes Instrument wie den DX7 zu programmieren oder mich damit jedenfalls zu beschäftigen. Das hat mich nicht abgeschreckt, das hat mich sehr gereizt. In einem Urlaub in Portugal lag in dem Ferienhaus eine CT, eine Computerzeitung. Ich hätte mir die nie mit in Urlaub genommen, aber dadurch, dass ich im Urlaub immer wieder mich sozusagen mit diesen komischen PC-Themen da befasst habe, wurde bei mir so klar, dass ja, das ist eigentlich auch die Plattform für mein zukünftiges Produkt, was ich entwickeln wollte. Das war der Grund, warum ich davon fasziniert war, auch Software programmieren zu lernen. Ich wollte einen Synthesizer entwickeln. Und am Anfang war der Gedanke auch noch gar nicht so klar, dass es ein modulares Konzept sein würde. Aber als ich einige Funktionsblöcke realisiert hatte in Software, habe ich gemerkt, ja, diese Modularität, die man also bei gutem Software-Design sowieso realisieren muss, die kann ich eigentlich auch an die Oberfläche durchreichen. Das Spannende bei Generator war auch, dass wir am Ende auch wieder eine Programmiersprache hatten. Also wir haben mit C und C++ hatten wir etwas entwickelt, was selbst aber eine grafische Programmiersprache geworden ist. Als uns klar wurde, dass wir das Ganze nativ implementieren können, das heißt auf dem Hauptprozessor eines ganz normalen PCs, ergaben sich da viele ziemlich faszinierende Aspekte. Es war erkennbar, dass da Millionen PCs in den Haushalten und in den Studios stehen, wo man nur noch durch die Installation einer Software diesen PC in ein Instrument umwandeln konnte. Wir waren sicherlich Pioniere, was die Einführung von Software in den Instrumentenbau angeht. Die Idee, also einen Computer wie ein Musikinstrument zu spielen und vielleicht sogar auf die Bühne mitzunehmen, also die war noch ziemlich abwegig für die meisten. Ja. Wir waren bis dahin nur 2 Leute, Volker und ich. Volker hatte den Mut und die Geduld, die Konzepte umzusetzen, die ich mir ausgedacht hatte. Ohne ihn hätte ich mir das selbst nie zugetraut. Als wir 96 die erste Publicity bekamen, hatten wir plötzlich viel Besuch, viele Anrufe von Leuten, die gefragt haben, ja, das klingt ja so spannend, da würden sie gerne auch mitwirken. Da sind dann mehrere Leute dann doch wirklich eingestiegen. Bernd Roggendorf zum Beispiel, ein sehr guter Softwareentwickler, der später einer der Gründer von Ableton war. Ja, es war ein Quantensprung für Reaktor, als wir die Technik von Vadim einbauen konnten. Erst mit der Compiler-Technik, die Vadim reingebracht hatte, die also die Core-Strukturen ermöglichte, haben wir aus Reaktor ein komplettes DSP-Werkzeug gemacht. Als wir uns für die modulare Struktur entschieden haben und dabei auch viel radikaler waren als die bekannten Modularsysteme, weil wir haben jedes einzelne Bedienelement als einzelnes Modul betrachtet und konnten also damit auch beliebige Bedienoberflächen schaffen. Da war ich davon fasziniert, dass jetzt eigentlich immer neue Instrumente entstehen könnten und man diese Instrumente einfach per E-Mail verschicken kann. Was auch sehr wichtig war, das war unser Forum, also die neuen Möglichkeiten des Internets. Wir sind ja sozusagen zusammen mit dem Internet auch groß geworden und haben relativ früh schon so ein User-Forum gehabt, wo Reaktor-User ihre Kreationen austauschen konnten. Und das Tolle ist ja, dass man eben weltweit dann im Austausch miteinander steht. Ich finde es übrigens auch gut, dass die Leute die Scheu verlieren, also vor Modularsystemen. Ja, dass diese Welle hat so viele Leute in Kontakt gebracht mit Signalen zu experimentieren. Das Reaktor hat das schon immer angeboten, dass man Dinge verdrahten kann. Aber ich glaube, erst jetzt, wo in der Hardware-Welt dieses Wiring so populär geworden ist, kommen die Leute vielleicht auch wieder zurück und entdecken in Reaktor die unendlichen Möglichkeiten, die sie dort haben.
So if Stefan was sort of the father of Reaktor, we're really lucky in that we have some of the current developers of Reaktor, the people who've made this tool, to talk to us a little bit about it. And I think for me, I know, and probably for a lot of you, you kind of wonder, how can you get into this sort of seemingly archaic world of creating stuff? And so they're going to help us kind of the people who made the tool are going to help us to understand how to make stuff with their tool. And we're going to start with, we've got Dave, Julian, and Vadim up here on stage. We're going to start with Dave to tell us a little bit about blocks. Actually, why don't you guys all introduce yourselves? I'm going to get out of your way since I'm standing in front of you.
Okay, the mic's on. Hi, everybody. I'm Julian. I'm one of the DSP developers on Reaktor since a couple of years, I guess. So I had a lot to do with the latest update, but not before that. In a little while, I'm going to show you something to do with the integration between our blocks system and a Eurorack modular system. Cool. But for now, it's these guys.
I'm Dave. I'm one of the instrument designer developers for blocks. I've only just started working with Native for the last year, so this is all kind of a big new thing for me. Blocks has been the first project I've worked on in earnest. And it's been super exciting to work with all of these guys already, so it's a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm Vadim. You probably have heard or read my name somewhere in connection to Reaktor Core. And I'm not going to just reveal what I'm going to be talking about. Let it be a surprise.
Okay. Well, I'll be surprised too. Well, let's start with Dave. So Dave, what is this blocks concept?
It's a concept of blocks.
Amazing. Thank you all for coming. Join us for the next Native Sessions.
Yeah, so it's a lot of things. For me, it represents like a nice, easy step into Reaktor. When Reaktor started, it was quite basic, and it's just got more and more powerful. And I think while that power is awesome, like for a lot of people, it can be a little bit intimidating to start with. So one thing Blocks does is it gives you a nice, easy step into it to start, working with this sort of modular environment in a software situation. But it does a lot more than that as well. It still sounds amazing. It's still super powerful, but it just breaks down a lot of barriers for you. You can get started super quickly and just put stuff together really, really quickly.
Yeah, where should people start when they see blocks? Is there somewhere that's kind of a good beginning place? I know what you're about to do, which we'll talk about in a second, but for people just exploring this for the first time?
Yeah, well, I mean, the sound design guys did an awesome job putting together some example patches, and I'm sure there's been loads floating around between us as well, so hopefully more will be coming. So there's the examples that come with it, and then there's the user library where people are making their own as well. But, the user library's just gone crazy with people making their own stuff, and that's a great place to check it out too.
And you were inspired a bit by this thing that has wires coming out of it over here, right? Tell us a bit about that.
Tell us about Eurorack, or?
We might not have time to go all the way through Eurorack, but in what way did this kind of influence what you were doing with blocks?
Well, it's just the idea of breaking down your sound design into individual components. Rather than having this one preset synth in front of you, you can just take the bits that you want and put them together to make the sound that you want. So if you want a filter, you can load a filter. If you want an envelope, you load an envelope. And you can just think about your sound in a very object-based way. And modular synths are fantastic for that, because you just get the bits you need.
So tell me, how are you feeling? Are you feeling nimble? Is your hand ready to patch? Because I kind of feel like I'm ready to watch you patch something.
Okay. Yeah, sure. If my screen can come on the screen, then that would be a good start.
Take the time that you need to warm up here.
Yeah. Okay, that's me. Cool.
If Dave seems a little bit keyed up, and kind of excited, and maybe a little bit of sweat already on his brow, it's because we're going to kind of torture him a little bit, and make him use this environment that everybody says is fast and easy and quick, and we're going to give him 5 minutes to do something with it. The longer I do this intro, I can see the more nervous this is getting, which is super exciting, especially for me, because I don't have to do anything. And I guess somehow in the back they have some sort of timer that they can bring up, or...
I think the idea is that you explain what I'm doing, so I don't have to talk.
Yeah, no. Look.
So if you can... if you can keep up, that's really the challenge.
Yeah, okay, that's right. So I should actually be nervous too. I'm going to get ready.
Okay.
Myself.
Yeah, you're good.
And are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
So let's start the timer.
Okay. Oh shit. All right. So I'm just gonna load a VCA, which is like a little amplifier for my final output, and an oscillator, and already I can patch that straight in, and that should give me some.
That's good. Sound in 15 seconds.
Cool. So we got
nice
sound.
sounding oscillator. Good.
I'm gonna get a couple oscillators because 2 are better than 1.
Don't tell the 303 that, but I agree.
It's got 2 wave shapes though. So.
That's true.
I'm going to use a little mixer to mix my 2 oscillators, and I've named one of them 2, and I'm going to detune it slightly, and I'll do that as well.
And look at that too, boy. As opposed to past versions of Reaktor and other patching environments, we have a nice pretty attractive faceplates there, and I can see all the knobs, and
Yeah.
something is happening. I'm not hearing any sound, but
No.
Keep going.
I'm patching deaf. So basically, I've just mixed a few audio sources into a mixer, and I've also used the CVP to make a sort of amplitude modulation thing. But I'm getting there with the sound. Bear with me, I've got things going on. And I'm going to take that.
time is ticking. Dave is patching.
Yes,
I'm
sorry
gonna watch
about
him,
that.
and
So I'm
it's
gonna
looking nice visually.
I'm using the sample and hold to generate some random values for me, if it works, like that. And I'm going to put that into a quantizer and into the pitch inputs of these oscillators, like that. And I'll give it a scale of some type, like that, and like that.
Users of past versions of Reaktor will also notice that you can see the entire word pitch as opposed to some small collection of letters.
So now it'll give me some notes like that, which is pretty exciting if you like notes. I'm also going to, but rather than clicking the button, I'm going to use this LFO as a trigger. So now hopefully when I turn that up and speed this up and connect it to the right input, we'll get some notes like that. And how long have I got left?
You have 2 minutes, 50 seconds,
2 minutes.
and 47 seconds.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'm going to use this envelope to modulate the volume so it's not constant, because that was quite annoying. And now I'll turn the modulation up here. And we got some notes, which is...
Notes and envelopes.
And dynamics.
And
all
dynamics and, yeah, multiple oscillators.
all those fun things.
2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Wow, okay. Man, I could keep going for quite a while, to be honest.
Do it. Use every second. Ooh.
Yep, all right. Sorry, I killed it for a second. There we go. So this will let me use a little bit of slew, which is kind of cool.
Nice use of slew.
And it needs some effects. Oh, I tell you what, actually, let's do this. This will be funny.
And the 2-minute warning.
Okay. You can do like cool FM cross modulation stuff. So I'm going to do that with the oscillators. So you get this. Let's put those on linear through 0, like that. Sounds kind of cool. So I'm going to modulate that for giggles, like that. Which will... It's kind of fun.
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess I'll add a effect on there. We got this really cool delay that you can clock. So basically, you give it a gate input and it syncs itself. I mean, you can sync it in a bunch of ways, but this is kind of a cool way to do it. So we'll put it into the delay, into the output, and then we'll click onto that. And we got some fun stuff going on there as well.
54 seconds.
Oh, good. Doing all right here. Where have we got?
Already a really beautiful sounding patch, I have to say.
Thank you.
40 seconds.
So now that's just modulating the LFO so that it's faster and slower for different notes. And then just make it go a bit crazy. A bit cross modulation. And...
23 seconds.
All right, and a reverb for a big finish, I guess. Hey! How we doing? Oh, running out of space on my
10
tiny
seconds.
laptop. Oh, okay. Where's my reverb gone? Cool. Cavernous reverb.
And time, but it's
Hey.
beautiful. How about that?
Cool.
Big round of applause for Dave. An entire patch and maybe the time it takes for us to find our credit card and pay for some Eurorack modules. So I'm quite impressed. Beautiful. All right, well, thanks, Dave. I'll go to turn next to Vadim. Let's go deeper. So it boxes this high level, but you're going to take us further into the belly of the beast, I think.
Yeah, dive a little bit down.
All right.
All right. So one of the highlights of Reaktor 6 release is the ZDF toolkit developed by Dr. Julian Parker over there.
Hi.
Well, okay, let's have a round of applause for the doctor. Good.
As many of you probably heard, ZDF stands for Zero Delay Feedback. This is an efficient method of designing good-sounding virtual analog filters. Being graphical, the method bears a strong similarity to Reaktor structures, and the ZDF toolkit is exploiting that similarity. The toolkit consists of a set of Reaktor core macros implementing digital models of analog block diagram elements, and you simply build ZDF filters by connecting these macros together. That's it. And in fact, And in fact, the absolute majority of new Reaktor 6 filters have been built this way, simply by using the ZDF toolkit. The ZDF method is not only about building models of existing analog filters, it is also a way to construct new digital filters which do not have an analog prototype. And one way of constructing such new filters is by simply modifying the existing ones. So imagine doing the same in hardware. Yeah, so you have a hardware modular rack, yeah, taking one filter module out, opening it up, taking a soldering iron, yeah, changing the way the components are connected. This will probably be relatively time-consuming, and also unless you really know what you're doing, you're going to get a few short circuits and blow up a few components. Yeah, there goes your filter. Fortunately, in software, things are much quicker and safer, and this is what we're going to do tonight. A kind of low-level modular patching under the hood of Reaktor. Since we're relatively short on time, we have already prepared a Reaktor setup here in advance. Yeah, we're having here on screen. It's based around a stock core library macro, a ZDF filter loosely emulating a famous analog filter of the past, the operational transconductance amplifier ladder filter, something like this SM2040. And we have the filter structure here on the screen. It's built around these 4 serially connected one-pole filters. If we look into this one pole, it's just an integrator with negative feedback. And this saturator in front of the integrator is emulating the nonlinear effects of a differential transistor amplifier. And going back out, we also see the external feedback around this chain of 4 one-poles containing another saturator and the feedback gain control. And that's pretty much it. That's the structure of the original stock filter. Except for the sake of visual clarity, we have removed the components which will not be in use tonight. And we have already added in advance 2 new components, the state variable filter here and the subtractor here. They are not in use yet. You can see their outputs are not connected. We'll need them later. In this setup, this filter is being fed with a square waveform, which is also modulating the filter at the audio rate. And we have an LFO and a couple of effects. And this is how the original setup is sounding like. Please keep in mind that we are not trying to build a particular filter. You have to look at the structure as a kind of low-level modular patch. And our intention is to change a few of the patch chords and see if we can get other interesting sounds out of this patch. Therefore, we're not listening to the raw output of the filter, but to a more complicated structure with modulations and effects to get more interesting sound out of it. This is not filter building, this is sound design that we're doing. As another notice, since the filter is highly nonlinear, we're running this setup at 176 kilohertz sampling rate to minimize or to reduce the digital artifacts coming from the nonlinearities. But actually, at the setting which we currently have here, these artifacts are not that strong. We could also switch to 44 kilohertz. You can hear it sounds pretty much the same, right? But since we're going to do a number of changes to this patch later, yeah, let's go back to a higher sampling rate for better safety. And let's begin with the modifications. So, as the first thing which we're going to do, we're going to introduce a 2-pole resonating filter into the feedback path. Let's start with a low pass with a relatively low resonance. So now we can make the cutoff of this low pass track, the cutoff of the main filter. Let's try bandpass instead. Remove the tracking. Try high pass. Increase the resonance. We can also use a different pickup point for the main feedback. For example, we can take the high pass output of the second one pole. Switch to a low pass in the feedback again. We can use another feedback pickup point, the subtractor here, taking the difference of the high pass outputs of the first and the fourth stages. Reduce the resonance back. Use the bandpass. And now we can play a bit with the controls. So the good news is, the cool thing about this is that you don't really need to understand what you're doing when you're doing this kind of experiments.
I love that. I'm sold.
Because in the end, it's not about doing right or wrong things here. We're just trying to get cool sounds. And
Well, no, you know what you're doing, I think.
yeah,
But
I'm not really. 50%. Like, I really didn't try to analyze what I'm doing from a scientific point of view. I know a little bit what these things are about, but I couldn't predict the sounds myself.
So even you doing some experimentation.
Exactly. I was just randomly picking up some things. Of course, I remembered which ones sound cooler and tried to keep this for the presentation, but that's a relatively random patching.
Oh, well, that's encouraging. Well, speaking of knowing what you're doing, just a quick reminder to all of those of you living in the internet that we are taking questions for these guys, and after the end of these three discussions, we'll do some Q&A. So if you have questions, I'm seeing you feel free to send them to these three gentlemen behind me, and so let's see, why didn't they pick a more attractive host? No, I mean kind of like questions about Reaktor. If you can, that would be great. Well, thanks so much for showing us that. Terrific. So we've seen blocks. Vadim's fan club is here tonight. We've seen blocks, this sort of higher level patching, and we've seen core, this kind of lower level patching, really at the bottom level of what's happening inside Reaktor. Now, behind me, I see we have a lot of discussions online about the battles between people who like digital and people who like analog, and between computers and people like hardware. But as I look behind me, I see in front of our last Reaktor developer, both of these machines kind of holding hands.
Exactly. Yeah, so we have a hardware Eurorack modular synthesizer here, of which I'm only going to use about 2 modules actually, so the rest is just there to make us look impressive. And on the other side here, I have a MacBook Pro running Reaktor. So how do we connect these together? And some sort of
keyboard as well, which I guess we'll see.
No, that's a demo later on.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I could use a keyboard, but it won't make any difference. Yeah, so how do we connect these two things? So, I mean, one thing to mention first is that when we were designing blocks, we wanted to make a system that communicates internally in exactly the same way that an analog modular synthesizer does. So all the signals are the same, essentially. Like, you don't have different standards, you don't have different ranges. Like, anything that's within a block's modular patch, if you send it out through some output of your sound card, well, with some caveats, and stick it into your modular, then it will do something sensible. Like, so you don't have to think about it, you can just do it. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate to you tonight, basically. So I have Reaktor connected up to a sound card, which is feeding its ADAT digital audio out into this module in the modular here. I don't know if we can see the modular on the screen. Okay, yeah, you see here. So this is basically a module that just takes this digital audio out and turns it into 8 analog audio streams. And we're going to use these streams to take outputs from blocks and do a couple of simple things with these modules in the analog modular.
So blocks is producing, or in Reaktor through blocks is producing audio signal.
No, it's producing control signals.
But I mean through the audio output. So audio signal that we're not listening to,
yeah.
But audio rate signals that we're using to control the modular.
It's producing low frequency, like control signals. So this is where the caveat comes in. Only some sound cards will let you output this stuff. You can check with your manufacturer or whatever, but...
And what we're looking for is DC coupled.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention the bad terms.
Well, I can do it.
Yeah, okay.
They can't fire me because
okay.
I don't work for native instruments.
Yeah, your audio interface has to be DC coupled, which means it passes very low frequency things, which is not normally necessary, but for this...
But you can find a list of audio interfaces that do that, and actually quite a few do. And
anyway, let's make some sound, perhaps.
Let's make some sounds.
So I have this oscillator. Yep, we can see again. Patched into a low-pass gate. So this is a setup a little bit like the Buchla kind of standard voice that Jan was talking about earlier. So let's just see if that's making some sound. Okay, maybe I need to turn up the frequency a bit. So not very much going on there at the moment, kind of boring. Let's turn it back down again. So the first thing we're going to do here is, you see I've already patched up a clock in Reaktor. So this is just like a module that sends out a trigger signal once every however many musical divisions. And we're just connecting this output directly to one of the outputs of Reaktor, which will then appear here in the modular. And we're going to use that little trigger ping to open the low-pass gate and get a rhythm. So I will patch that in now. You see, we have a rhythm already. Turn up this to make it sound a bit more interesting. Okay, but that's pretty boring. So what do we do if we want to get something more complicated going on? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the... okay, this is the wrong screen. I'm going to connect this clock module to another module we have called a clock divider. This is a module that basically like counts beats and then outputs new pulses after a certain number of counts. So you can get interesting musical divisions from this. So I'm going to patch out from here. Actually, no, I'm going to do something different. Let's improvise. I'm going to patch one of these divisions out into an envelope. That's much more exciting than just a trigger, right? Let's make sure the envelope is doing something interesting. So no sustain, because everybody hates sustain. And we can patch this envelope directly out into the modular again. And let's see what happens if we patch this into the other control input of the low-pass gate. It should give us a bit more rhythmic structure, at least. Turn it up. So we've got some more going on, but still, I don't know, there's some rhythm there, but it's not that interesting. So why don't we just do the same thing again? So we're going to make another envelope. Trigger it from another output from the clock divider. And send that out through another output back into the modular. And seeing as we don't have much time and we want to do something flashy, let's patch that into an input which alters the timbre of the sound that we're getting. So that goes in here. Turn up some knobs. I know what's going on here. It's a dodgy cable. This is one of the pitfalls of using hardware, of course. You can be undone by a dodgy cable. Hopefully this is not a dodgy cable. Okay, so there we go. Proper cable, and now we have stuff going on. We've got the timbre moving, we have the rhythm. I mean, this is already quite musical, well, in a way, in a very bass way. But the thing to emphasize at this point is that all this control, all this movement is coming out of Reaktor. Like, the sound is coming from the modular, but the control is coming from Reaktor, and that's a cool thing to do. So let's just finish off by patching something else small up quickly. I don't know, let's maybe just take one more output from the clock divider out into the outside world again. Maybe set it to a different rhythm. Then we're going to take another output from the oscillator. We're going to put it into the second low-pass gate down here. And then we're going to use this other rhythmic output to just trigger that to get like another beating kind of line against this. Before I turn this on, I'm just going to say that I didn't tune these, so this is going to be horribly out of tune. I'll try and control it and get it back into an interesting zone, but can we even hear it? Maybe if we turn this one down a bit. So we have a saw wave coming out of the other one, just giving us another rhythmic accent.
I'm ready to dance to this already. It's cool. I mean,
That's something at least.
the nervous laughter from the audience says they don't agree, but you know, okay.
Come on, this is classic Buchla stuff. Yeah, I mean, so this is the thing to take away from this. Like, basically, it's incredibly easy to get signals coming out from your modular. Coming out from Reaktor and controlling your modular. Like, you can use Reaktor blocks as an extension to your modular. Nobody wants to buy like 20 LFO modules or 20 envelope modules, but if you have Reaktor, you have that available to you, which is a nice thing. So, please try this at home.
Thank you so much. All right. Now, I already see a question coming up from our audience, which is there a way to reduce the amount of CPU usage from one block's patch? I guess that's a question for you.
Yeah, use less blocks.
No, they just said one. use none blocks patches.
No, well, okay.
It depends what you're doing.
Yeah.
The thing that blocks does, well, the difference for me between the hardware stuff and the block stuff is that the hardware stuff, it limits you to how many modules you can have in one case, and because you're limited, you get quite creative with how you use them. Blocks, as fantastic it is, because you can just load as many as your computer can hold, but sometimes that does encourage you to not be efficient with how you use them. So, I mean,
there's another point to consider there as well, which is that because we were kind of competing in the same domain as hardware modulars with the blocks, like we spend a lot of CPU cycles on really making them sound and behave like the modules in a hardware modular would. So we made a conscious decision to like allow them to be expensive so that they sounded really good. Because you don't want like a poor recreation of your hardware modular in the computer, right? You want something that's really up there in the same ballpark. And to do that is expensive.
Well, you want cool sounds and for no CPU. Yeah, of course everyone wants that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any more money for more modules and you don't have money for a new computer, your strategy for kind of reducing CPU usage for blocks, is there kind of anything for people to know so that they can experiment and watch the CPU
reduce the sampling rate to 22 kilohertz.
No, I think it's
but
about
you're probably not going to like
creative.
the sound.
I think there are actually, for one outcome in blocks, there are actually 3 or 4 different ways of achieving it sometimes. If you want a simple slew generator or if you want a noise generator, there's like a bunch of different ways you could do it. And sometimes some are more efficient than others, because if you want a noise generator, you could get one from the sample and hold. Rather than loading a oscillator that has a noise output on it, it will work out more efficiently. So I think the key thing is to really explore what the blocks can offer individually, and then you can kind of find out other ways of achieving similar things that might be more efficient. I mean, as Julian said, there's only so much you can do to make these things efficient, and everybody did their best to get things as low as possible, but maintaining a high level of audio quality. Cool. So yeah, there's a compromise.
That's a good answer, I think. So we can also take some questions from in this room, if any of you all have things you'd like to know. Yeah, we have a question. We have another mic? Okay. Well, I'll repeat it then. Sure. So the question is, can you kind of explain again, how does the sound, the control voltage, how do you get control voltage from the computer to the modular? Can you explain what's happening there?
You mean on a technical level, like how the sound card's connected and stuff? Okay, well, we just have a RME Fireface, so standard sound card. It has an ADAT output, which is a certain range of channels on the sound card. The ADAT output is connected to this Expert Sleepers module, which is basically just a mini sound card of its own. The reason I'm using it is because it's DC coupled, which is what we were talking about earlier, and also it has levels that are kind of chosen to be compatible best with the modular. So it has a really high output level. Modulars, the signal inside modulars tends to be a lot higher than line level. It's like plus minus 10 volts or something instead of 1 or 2 volts. So if you take a signal out from your normal sound card and put it into the modular, then it will do stuff, but it might not be loud enough, might not be big enough to get big control stuff going on. That's not necessarily true. It depends on your sound card, but that's why we use this. So, I mean, it's literally just that. It's this Expert Sleepers module connected by ADAT to the Fireface, and we're just sending audio straight out into that.
And you're literally connecting your reactor patch from, a control output and one module into the audio output.
Yeah, I mean, we can't see the screen anymore, but I'm literally patching the control output of the block into the audio output, like nothing else. There's no like translation layer, no kind of like worrying about MIDI CV or whatever. It's just audio going out. Because in the end, audio and control voltages are exactly the same thing. They're just different rates. So, and that's a powerful idea, I think, mixing them up, because you don't have to. So once you've got your computer patched up to your modular, like you don't have to just send control out of there. You can move up into the audio rate whenever you want. Like you can go crazy.
Now, someone criticized me for this too. We should say that you haven't sort of invented the ability to do this in Reaktor, but what you've done is to keep the control rate ins and outs and blocks really consistent.
Yeah.
So that it's just convenient to do it in Reaktor.
Yeah, it's all about levels. Like, for example, if you want to deal with pitch in standard Reaktor, there's a different system. It's not really like a signal. It's more like a stream of numbers. And if you want to patch that out to your modular, you have to do some translation first to turn it into something that's compatible. But with the block signals, they're there already. So
yeah, so you can do this with other environments, but Reaktor has just done a really great job of making it a lot easier to deal with.
Exactly, yeah.
One more question from the crowd? Or people at the bar? No. Everyone is in stunned silence, even here. Okay. Well, thanks to all three of you.
Thank you.
I have to remember what happens next. So we're going to move now from developers to artists. But let's have one more round of applause for the people who made Reaktor. Thank you, guys. We're ready. They're ready. Artists are here. Here they come. So with me, representing every configuration of facial hair possible, I think, we have three really terrific artists and friends of mine. I'm glad to have them on stage. Mr. Tim Exile, on the left. Remember, the loudness of your applause will mean how much we like each of these artists. No, or their facial hair. Next, Deadbeat. That's nice, actually. And lastly, Errorsmith. Who now rivals Vadim as the most popular person here. Well, so we've now seen a lot of we've seen a lot of impressive demos. Maybe we'll go back and kind of review the video and watch that in 5 minutes in slow motion with blocks, so some of us can figure out what's happening. I just wanted to kind of find out from you guys how you're working, how you work in your music with this stuff. So we see how some of it has, see how some of it kind of looks when we start putting things together. But I was especially interested, really for many of you, what were your first experiences like with Reaktor? Because I think it can be quite intimidating to look at all this stuff and listen to engineers tell us how to use it. How did you manage to kind of get started, and can you kind of remember those first moments for any of you?
Well, I guess I discovered Reaktor initially because I worked for a competing company, and in doing research for other products that fulfilled a similar function, I discovered Reaktor and fell in love with it, and ended up using it a lot in my own music making. And I guess in a sort of general sense, Reaktor has always been a tool for solving problems. The perfect example, I haven't built that many instruments over the years from scratch, I would say. But a perfect example of one that I did build was an ensemble that's on the user library called Deadbeats, and it's just a 808 style step sequencing drum machine. And the reason that I built it was because in the early versions of Ableton, you couldn't host VST instruments, and I wanted to have a step sequencer while I was playing live. So I used the Reaktor Effects VST, which you could get clocked to and everything, and built this step sequencing instrument for playing live with. And I mean, I think that's a fairly good example, and I think it's a fairly good synopsis of my relationship with Reaktors. It's always been, if I reach a technical or creative wall when composing or when putting things together, it's tended to be the first tool that I've gone to solve that problem. And I think that's something for people who are just getting started with the program as well, that there's really nothing there. I think there can be a fear and sort of like a stigma attached to going in and ripping out pieces of other people's things and putting them together and being like, well, it's not really mine. I should really go and build my own LFO. But why do you want to build your own LFO when there's 50 other great ones there? And I think thinking about things at this very basic level of what it is that you or what problem you're trying to solve is at the very least for me, has been an effective way of dealing with it.
And so you mean actually going to the user library and finding stuff that other people have built, or going to the factory library and finding stuff?
Either way, I think there's anybody who's starting out or anybody who's been even using it for a long, I go to the user library at least every couple of months just to go and see what because people are doing completely insane stuff always, and there's always something inspiring to steal. Whatever. Picasso, right?
Well, they're giving it away, right? This is a little bit like, if you haven't hung out in the user library, it's like walking into a music store where everything is free.
Exactly. Yeah.
Intentionally, not just because you have a nice trench coat on or something.
Yeah.
And you were also happy to share your stuff in the user library. So you obviously happy that other people go and take your stuff.
Well,
yeah?
Absolutely. It made sense to me. It made sense to me that I was like, well, if I'm having this problem, there's other people who are playing live with Ableton, and this is a solution I was happy to share it with other people, so that other people could use it as well. Yeah.
How about you, Tim? Another. Now, some of your stuff is not free. We have to pay. We should pay for some of it too.
Well, it's always welcome. Well, yes. I started 15 years ago now, something like that. Actually, my route into Reaktor was first through Vadim's creation before he joined Native Instruments, Sync Modular. And at the time, I was well into this whole space race that was going on, which is the quest for the most ridiculous sound in this sort of like post IDM, or like the sort of the heyday stroke end of IDM when it was last cool, and so everybody was trying to just find. I'd spend hours like trawling the internet for these weird plugins and so on. And so when I discovered Sync Modular, I just started messing around. Very much taking this. I didn't know what I was doing. I suppose I did. Yeah, I did kind of try and think ahead of I want something that sort of does this. Like, how would that work? And so I'd I'd probably do a lot like at the time I ought to sleep. I was actually kind of working out like how delay lines might work, or how you might want to make something with mash up a break or something. So I just sort of like, I dipped my toe in, and then quickly my foot, and then I was up to my knee, and then I sort of fell in, and then I was like diving deep quite quickly. I think I guess I was lucky. I took to this like deep patching, making monsters thing quite readily, and it just sort of went from one thing to another. Really, I started off, making little sound toys. It didn't really work and completely inefficient with CPU, like aliasing all over the place. To just gradually working out how to build things better, and then like sort of 2 or 3 years after I first started learning Reaktor, I made my first kind of like all-in-one instrument, and since then I never really looked back. And the way I work with Reaktor now is really, it's a sort of single development project. So I've made this thing which I call the Flow Machine, which is an instrument for improvising electronic music. I mean, that was one of the things that was really clear I wanted to do, was to actually improvise, and not just improvising by kind of bringing pre-prepared loops in and out, but literally like playing stuff from scratch. And so the way I've pretty much been working on one Reaktor ensemble for my entire.
You're going to show this to us in a moment.
Yes,
too.
I will.
Yeah,
I will. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But this has been, but it really did start. It sounds like it really did start for you with some trial and error. So if people feel afraid at all, or so we've already heard it's okay to go and kind of rip things out of the user library and pull things apart and try to reuse components. It's okay at first that maybe your patch is not working beautifully and it's eating CPU for reasons you don't know, or things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's like learning a language, or it's like anything. You just got to throw yourself in, and. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is a bit contentious, but I think actually everybody is a patcher at heart. It's just like, what type of patcher are you? How do you engage with sticking stuff together? And for some people, using other people's creations and wiring them together in a very basic way, and then just getting lost very quickly in improvising and jamming and so on. That is patching. That is an approach to this modular way of creating sound, but then some people will get like Vadim's mentality, which is just like dig right down to the metal, and there's all sorts of things in between. So I mean, don't be afraid. Throw yourself in, and you'll kind of find you'll find out something about how you work with stuff in the process.
Well, if even Vadim is doing some of this through trial and error and making mistakes, then it's definitely okay for all of us. Yeah. Yeah. What? No? Yeah, he was lying. But let's believe his lie. But it does kind of get. But it does, at the same time, it does get back to that question earlier about how do you kind of quantify the quality of hardware versus software. I mean, there's not really wrong answers here, actually. If you make a mistake and it's making sound, it's really down to whether you then like the sound that you've just made, I would say, right? So the sound, it's okay. So we've established this trial and error for all of us, or at least for me and for some of us. Well, so we're going to take a look at Tim's kind of performance setup, but I'm curious for the other two of you, what's your performance rate like these days? And when you're playing with Reaktor, are you kind of going with one ensemble? Is it one sort of particular tool, and you use that for the whole performance? When I've heard you play, it sounded like lots and lots of Razor. Yeah.
Yeah, when I play live or when I make music, I always stick to one source somehow, because otherwise I get lost because there's too much options. So, I mean, with Reaktor, it's very hard to limit options, obviously. So my idea is, okay, one record or one live set is basically of one source, and right now it's Razor mainly, like doing all sounds from it, and also because I still like it a lot, and it always I just because I spent so much time developing it, I still feel that I haven't harvested much from it for my music making. So that's right now I'm doing this.
What about you, Scott? Is Deadbeat still happening?
No, I don't use it anymore
Deadbeats.
because obviously you can do step sequences and stuff in Ableton. But I mean, it still Reaktor still factors highly, but less as a sound generator for me, and usually more in terms of the effects. There's always like 2 or 3 of the effect sends that are Reaktor patches that are constantly evolving chains of delays, reverbs, lots of granular stuff that really that changes all the time, and it's always being modified, and that's where it's always ever present in the live rig.
Cool. Well, before we move on, any other questions from inside the audience? Yeah.
The regular hardware we have now in MIDI controllers, just the boxes, are not optimum for controlling such thing that would be a little bit like a modular synthesizer. Is there any research for a new generation hardware to try and deal with all the possibility and the flexibility of such softwares?
You mean hardware to actually control the patching, or just more interesting hardware controllers to interface with the patches?
I mean, the regular hardware controllers are basically pads and knobs, but it doesn't really take into account this cable thing. So I don't know if there's something that somebody are thinking about the next generation of hardware, taking that into account.
I guess the question is whether there's sort of hardware. I mean, there's certainly lots of interesting hardware controllers beyond just pads and buttons for playing the instruments that you create and things like the Raleigh Seaboard and so on. But and I've seen experiments with people creating interfaces where you can connect physical cables that control what's happening on the screen, or kind of using the Eurorack like we saw. But anything else to add to those?
I think one of the biggest issues with dealing with software modulars as opposed to dealing with a fixed software instrument is with a software instrument, it's got a fixed set of controls all the time, and you pop it up and you map it to your MIDI controls, and then you're done. But a modular environment like Reaktor is changing all the time. But if I'm not mistaken, the new generation of the native keyboards will auto map the parameters for Reaktor patches as well. Or am I wrong? Is that correct? Or
yeah, there's some ways of connecting those, which I think we're going to see a little bit in the next demo as well. So there are ways around it. I mean, I suppose one thing I would say, just my own opinion here, is there's some advantages to being able to work with a mouse, and so that even though it's nice to have physical cables, at the same time, the nice thing about, especially when you come from hardware back to software, it's nice to never run out of cables. It's nice to be able to create modules out of thin air. And all of those things are certainly very nice to do on screen, and have gotten, it's gotten more efficient and gotten easier to see what you're doing. So long as you then find kind of interesting ways, I guess, of connecting instruments to things later, which I think we'll look at a bit. One question is, have artists been, and I'm also depending on whoever's sending us messages from the back of the room to tell us when it's time to move on, which I suspect is soon, but have you been using blocks yet? Has anybody been using blocks?
Yeah, I had a quick block up, block out, blocking.
Blocking.
Yeah, actually, a few weeks before they were released, I was on my way back from Berlin to London, and I mean, I guess it's just like the ultimate sort of hipster thing to do, to like try and make something musical on a plane. So I did, but yeah, it was. It's really, really great fun. I think what I haven't gone into the Eurorack wormhole vortex yet. I think I have a feeling I'm just about on the cusp. But then there's also blocks. But the thing that I really enjoyed about blocks is you can, I made a sort of self-generating composition that just sort of played itself and muted things in and out. I mean, it sounded pretty kind of like a haunting minimal thing, which I think is, that's probably fairly like in the center of what you might do first with a blocks patch. But yeah, it's very a very kind of I felt very unimpeded in getting my ideas into something that kind of lived on its own. Wow.
Any other blocks? You guys, you're not using blocks yet. No.
Oh,
Sabbatical. Not even on the beach. It's lovely. Like you have some muscles, or something, and then also blocks. But how about Scott?
I mean, I was interested when it came out to begin with, because immediately saw that, I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see what happens when we start pumping this into the modular, and did a few experiments with some friends, with Colin the Mole, about just to see how stable the clock was and how it was interfacing. So I guess we did some clock blocking or something. I don't know, but sorry.
I love that. I love that this was met with huge applause on stage, but you can't hear it probably on the internet. Is just dead silence.
Super nerdy joke. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Well, let's have a big round of applause though for our artist panel. It's such a pleasure to talk to you guys. Next up, we're going to bring from Native Instruments Nadine to show us a little bit some other tools, and to see a little bit of some of the other stuff that's available to all of you. I'm going to let her get set up for a moment. So Nadine, what are you going to show us?
Okay, so I'm Nadine. I'm the lead product specialist for Complete at Native Instruments, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about the Reaktor user library. So it's already been brought up a few times tonight. The Reaktor user library it's a great resource for builders and for musicians to upload and to share their creations. And it's obviously been there for a really long time. Stefan Schmidt actually said it in the video right at the beginning. Pretty much since the beginning of a Reaktor, there's been a Reaktor community. And, within this community, people have been building their instruments, sharing them, they've been getting downloaded, and then someone grabs that, makes a modification of it, and uploads it again to the user library. And this is what I'm going to show you today, because it's something that I did. And, basically, there are over 4,000 instruments now in the user library, and it's loads. And blocks, Reaktor 6 came out, I think about a month ago, and now there are already 140 or 150 new blocks patches there as well. So what Reaktor is probably most famous for the sound generators, right? So it's famous for the synthesizers, for the effects, the engines, the granular engines, all of that stuff. But what it's actually not so well known for are the sequencers. Yeah, so the user library has some really, really cool tools which allow you to basically trigger sounds in interesting ways. So especially if you're interested in things like polyrhythms. Yeah, so I love working with polyrhythms. I'm a musician, but I play the drums a little bit. I'm not that good. I couldn't physically play this stuff. So I want to use sequencers to enable me to do that. Okay, so can you see? Oh, yeah, you can. All right, so what we have up here is actually something that I downloaded from the Reaktor user library a couple of days ago. I've been using it for a while. This is called the Euclidean sequencer, and this one here has actually already gone through quite a few incarnations. So if you look for it on the user library, you'll find a few of them. This is not the original. The original was made by a user called Normalized. And this one was downloaded and modded and re-uploaded, and this is done by someone called Benjamin Kirchhofer. Yeah, so I'm going to show you this ensemble, and then I'm going to show you afterwards what I did with it. Okay, so I'm just going to press play. And yeah, first of all, just focus on the first sequencer. I've got Reaktor loaded in my DAW. It's Ableton, as you can see. I've got it loaded as a VST. And it's got 3 sequences in it, and they're all, obviously sequences don't make any sound, right? So I've got it connected to another instrument called Steam Pipe, and I'm just going to press play and turn up the volume. All right, so this is the original example that he uploaded. It's this marimba-ish sound that you can hear, and you can see in the first one, this is basically what we're hearing, yeah? The cool thing is you can change the speed. You can change everything, really, so I'm just going to make it a bit faster. I've added the second one now. Now I'm going to add the third one. So what you can see is that these are all running at different speeds using different time divisions, yeah? So they're all using different time signatures. And it's really, really, really easy to set up. I can basically just have as many of these as I want. I send them to an instrument, and super fast. I'm creating polyrhythms on the fly. So that's really nice. But I actually want to do something a little bit different. So made a few mods together with a colleague at NI. I wanted to do a few different things. I've got this keyboard here, and what I wanted to do was to create patterns, for my sounds, different sequences that I like, and I wanted to assign them to the keys. Can you see my keyboard? Yeah, I wanted to assign them to the keys on my keyboard that I've actually got color-coded here, So that was one of the things I wanted to do. There's no sound coming out of this keyboard. It's just to basically change patterns. That was one thing that I wanted to do. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to use this polyrhythmic sequencer with VST tracks in my DAW. It's great. The example that he uploaded using it all within Reaktor is super cool, but I actually want to do something different. I want to have sequences going to all of my different instruments in my DAW. So that's what I did. If you just bring my computer back up. Cool, so what you can see, I've got the sequencer on the left. It's the blue one, is basically just triggering a bass drum sample, It's pretty simple. There's a track with a bass drum sample in there, and that's being sequenced by this one on the left. The one on the right in red is also a sequencer, and that's sequencing my hi-hat. So pretty simple stuff. And I just let them run together. You're going to hear that they're pretty much doing exactly the same thing. So you can see my bass drum's running a quarter note, half notes, 4 steps, and so is my hi-hat. And now what I can do is, I just said that I set up the keyboard so I can switch through different presets using the keys, and that's what I'm going to do. So if I just press a key on my keyboard, I can change the speed of the hi-hat, make it very fast, start adding different time divisions. You know what? I'm going to add some oomph to that bass drum. All right. So I can actually also change the pattern of the bass drum, right? So I've got that already set up. They're running at different speeds with different time divisions. That was pretty easy to do. And I've actually got this sequencer on the right going to a few different instruments, so I'm just going to start bringing them all up now. I can add some effects if I want. It's completely up to me. All right. And now I've got more sequences in my session, so I'm just going to bring them all up. So I can add reverb to all of that, and I can mess around with the patterns and just go through all the different ones I want to have. And if I would show you what's happening on the keyboard, on the computer, these are all the sequences that are now running in my session simultaneously. All right, so these are all running polyrhythmically. I can add effects, I can trigger as many different patterns as I want, and I can do that all just by playing the keys on the keyboard. It's really, really ridiculously easy to set up. I feel almost bad showing it. This is something that is going to be really interesting to lots of different users. So first of all, like I said before, if you're interested in polyrhythms and just creating more interesting, time divisions and things like that, using that for your music, this is a perfect way to do it. And I did all of this without inputting a single MIDI note. I didn't play a single note. This was all run by the sequences that are running in the background. So that's great for that sort of stuff. It's great for performance scenario. You can use this MIDI control, or any MIDI controller really, to just trigger the different patterns that you have. You can have all of your effects and all the weird time divisions set up on the controller. And really the whole reason I'm showing you this is because the original was uploaded, then it was downloaded. Someone made some things to that which I liked, so I downloaded it. Then I made a few modifications to it so that it was more suitable for what I wanted to do. And I'm going to re-upload that tomorrow. And hopefully someone's going to download that and do something interesting with that as well, and then put it back on into the user library. So this is the whole point of the community, is to do this, is to share the work that you make and your creations, because this is what basically keeps it alive. Yeah, so thanks. Thank you.
So Nadine, where will people be able to find this tomorrow if they want to go tomorrow and look for this?
I'm not sure if we're going to upload it to the Native Instruments channel, but we're going to name it similarly to the original. So if you put that one in, it's going to show up.
And that name again? What's again?
The Euclidean sequencer, because that's what it is. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Euclidean. Cool. Thank you, Nadine, and thank you, Euclid. So finally, and the people must have liked that because it silenced all the questions. Although someone says I might be wrong. What do they say? Is it not Nadine? It is Nadine. Okay, yeah. That was the easiest question yet. Lastly, but that was Nadine. Next is not Nadine, but Tim Exile. I think we're going to bring back to the stage.
The flow machine is getting ready. The flow machine is moving into a position where previously there was a table with Vadim's setup.
What is your T-shirt, by the way? I was noticing this wonderful pattern on your T-shirt.
Yeah. So this is. I'm going to be. There's going to be a little sneaky peek later. I've been working on something.
Of what's underneath your T-shirt?
Yes. Well,
amazing.
No, not. Yeah. No. Well. So I mean, obviously, I'm always working on the flow machine. Have been for 10, 15 years, and as Native Instruments users may or may not know, I have kind of spurred off 2 products so far from the flow machine. The first one was the finger.
So the flow machine was your own Reaktor patch.
And the flow machine was and is my own Reaktor patch, which I made in response to basically wanting to really perform electronic music live. And that was kind of 10 years ago when it wasn't really possible. I mean, now it is. It's very possible to perform electronic music live in lots of different ways, but when I started making the flow machine, the way I wanted to perform electronic music wasn't available. It wasn't around. So I dived in, making it, making my own thing, and then it sort of turned into this behemoth, untamed. But one of the great things about the flow machine is that two parts of it have been turned into plugins, which are part of Complete or Complete Ultimate, or obviously for sale individually.
And what are those 2 parts?
So there's the finger which is keyboard triggered effects. So it's an effect. So you use it as a plugin on a channel that you have audio coming through already, but you play the effects using your keyboard. So it's very, very good for kind of mashing things up, which I am a big fan of doing. And then a year after that came the mouth, and the mouth is a voice synthesizer. Again, it's an effect, so you put it as a plugin on a channel that has audio coming through it. Originally, when I made the mouth, I wanted to turn my voice into synths, bass lines, etc. But then actually you can also sort of feed anything through it, and it'll do something weird to it. And so obviously you can put 2 and 2 together.
You can use a mouth and a finger.
Yes, you can put the mouth and finger together.
I don't even know what that means, but that sounds horrible.
Well, let's not.
Carry on.
Yeah.
We don't think about that. But you can use these two musical tools together in your live music performance.
So yeah, I've also been working on other things, and very near to unleashing a new thing. It's not completely ready to unleash, but basically it may or may not have something to do with this T-shirt, and I may or may not try to give it a little whirl at the end of my set tonight.
Ah, okay.
So
you've heard it here first, unless you're over there and didn't hear it. But those of you who heard it here first. There's some. It sounds like maybe there is an answer to the question about collaborations with Tim Exile and Native Instruments. It sounds like there might well be one.
I think there might well be one. There might well be one. Might indeed well be.
Indeed might well possibly.
There indeed be what?
Very possibly there might well indeed be
yes
in the future perhaps.
Indeed. Yes.
Something new.
This is polyrhythmic language.
From Tim Exile.
From who?
From Tim.
Who?
Exile.
Right.
Now I think that the flow machine.
It might be ready. Yeah, I'm going to nip round the back.
Nip round the back.
Just let me nip round the back to check. Because, I mean, the flow machine does consist of a lot of digital sort of gaffer tape, sellotape, blue tack, in order to get it all to run together. So, basically everything I'm about to do is as yet unheard. And is completely improvised, as is my cable management currently. Is it? Oh, so brilliant! You can see it all. So basically, it's a mass of controllers. This kind of part of it, these controllers here, excluding the push, is kind of the flow machine that's been in existence for about 6 years now. And it's really good having an instrument that stays the same for 6 years because you really get to learn to play it and you learn the ins and outs of it. It basically consists. I've got a looper here. All my loops kind of stack up. You'll see them when I start playing. Then I've got basically a bunch of effects there and some input control, and I've got here control for my kind of groove boxes. So I've got some sort of MIDI groove boxes. And a keyboard which is a bit of an interloper in terms of control, so it can control any one of these things depending on what I need. So yeah, again, it's all controlled. It's all controlling Reaktor, which is running here on this Mac Mini, which is breaking into quite a sweat. I think it runs at like 70% CPU. So for those of you who get frustrated by your blocks creations, I know how you feel. And then there's this little thing over here that may or may not have something to do with this T-shirt that I may or may not show you later. Anyway, I will start playing something. I'm not sure what I'm... actually, no, maybe I'll start...
Thank you. Thank you very much. How long am I supposed to be playing for? Does anyone know?
Yeah. Well, I'm till 5 in the morning. Oh my God.
That's enough. But okay, so I did say, I'll give my little thing a little whirl. I haven't actually had that much time to practice, and I've only just plugged it into the big system, so forgive me if it all goes wrong. But I'm going to try something which is new and really fun. I think it's really fun, and I hope you're going to like it. Thank you very much.